The populist Pan-African notion that the African continent as a whole has always somehow belonged to one particular race collapses the moment you look at history. When the argument is brought up that the first colony in South Africa never had any contact with black people for over a century, Afro-Marxists will tell you that the whole continent belongs to them, black people. But this is far from the case. The name of Africa in and of itself is Greco-Roman in origin, and some of the first peoples known as Africans were Greco-Roman themselves. In fact, the Egyptian Empire even banned black people from even entering the northern part of the African continent for almost 1,000 years. And even today, there are European enclaves in North Africa that are majority white and had been for more than 1,000 years. Whenever minority groups in South Africa, such as the Afrikaner and the people of the Western Cape as a whole, point to Article 235 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to self-determination for cultural communities, there is a tremendous backlash on social media, mostly from black Pan-Africanists who say things like, "You can have your homeland in Europe, but not on African soil." That is not a fringe view, but a mainstream political position in this country. And this is evident from the fact that our very President Cyril Ramaphosa himself, back in 2019, referred to the mere presence of white people in Southern Africa as a so-called indignity and hurt.
It is indeed a great honor for us to address this important ceremony where we've come to celebrate the settlement of land claims. And in a way, this morning we come to heal the wound that was inflicted on our people many, many years ago, and heal the indignity and the hurt that was committed 367 years ago, taking the most valued possession from our people, the land.
The entire debate on land ownership in this country is also largely based on the narrative that black people are supposedly the indigenous people to this part of the world, which they are not in the majority of areas in this country, while white people are settlers. The EFF, for example, another major Pan-Africanist party in this country along with the ANC, openly describes itself as ideologically Fanonian, basing its politics on the theory of the Afro-Marxist political theorist Frantz Fanon, who famously wrote in his work The Wretched on the Earth that, and I quote, "The native's work is to imagine all possible methods for destroying the settler. The appearance of the settler has meant, in terms of syncretism, the death of the Aboriginal society, cultural lethargy, and the petrification of individuals. For the native, life can only spring up again out of the rotting corpse of the settler." This very Pan-Africanist ideology, which reduces the mere presence of non-black people in Africa to a form of oppression, has long been a decisive factor in South African political landscape. But in today's video, I will point out how utterly baseless and fundamentally at odds with reality and history it is. After Dutch migrant settlers settled in the Cape of Good Hope in the 17th century, they had no contact with any black tribes for well over 100 years. In fact, in 1685, more than 3 decades after the arrival of Europeans at the Cape, the governor of the Cape Colony, Simon van der Stel, led an expedition northwards to roughly the area where the town of Springbok is located today, almost at the border of present-day Namibia. Despite traveling more than 500 kilometers north of the border of this colony, they never encountered any black populations or people, only here and there sporadic Khoisan families who themselves had entered this region relatively recently after being violently displaced from the greener areas of the country into the desert, from the more fertile eastern parts of Africa by a wave of black migrations coming from the north at the same time. Van der Stel and his men from the Cape certainly knew that there must have been black tribes living to their north, but despite their long journey, they were not able to find any. The very first time the Europeans at the Cape made any contact with black African tribes was more than a century later, when the Dutch Afrikaner farmers known as the Vryburgers moved into what is today known as the Eastern Cape province in South Africa. Here, they first encountered Xhosa settlements along the vicinity of the Fish and Kei River, which is today near the city known as East London. The Xhosas had also only fairly recently moved into this area from the northeast after being displaced by the Zulu. The black tribes who populated this country moved here from Central Africa around the same time that the Caucasians settled in the area, and yet these very people whose ancestors were actually banned from North Africa for thousands of years now laughably claim that this part of the continent is their own. Ancient Egypt was one of the world's longest lasting and most powerful civilizations, flourishing along the Nile River for over 3,000 years prior to the birth of Jesus Christ. Its history is usually divided into three great high points called the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. It was with the Middle Kingdom during the 2nd millennium BC that the Egyptian Empire which reached its greatest heights, stretching from the northeastern corner of Africa today where they border on Israel to all the way down to Nubia in what is today known as Sudan. Interestingly enough, during the Middle Kingdom, Pharaoh Senwosret III of Egypt's 12th dynasty, who ruled the empire from 1878 BC to 1839 BC, Egypt established a series of fortified posts and boundary markers along the southern regions of the Nile River in Lower Nubia, strategically placed at the narrowest reach of the Nile in the area, making it easier to monitor and control any traffic and overland movement coming into Egypt. According to ancient sources, Senwosret forbade black people from passing into Egyptian territory, and one border notification, which we still have today, expressly forbade black people from entering the Empire of Egypt. It read, and I quote, "This is the southern boundary of the Egyptian Empire, made in the year 8 under the majesty of King of the Upper and Lower Egypt, Khafra Senusesret III, who is given life forever and ever, in order to prevent any Cushite, which means black people, from crossing it by water or by land, with ship or any herds of Cushites, except a Cushite who shall come to do trading in Incan or coming with a commission. Every good thing shall be done to them, but without allowing any shipments of Cushites to pass by here, going downstream forever." In other words, the southern border policy of the ancient Egyptian Empire actually entailed prohibiting black people from entering their territory for all of eternity, according to them. And this border policy remained in force until almost the start of the 1st millennium BC, when black tribes regained some control over the territory today known as Sudan. The idea that Africa is for black Africans is not only at odds with history, but also at odds with reality. Even today, there are several European enclaves on the ancient continent belonging to Spain, such as Ceuta on Morocco's northern coast, an enclave with a population of around 80,000 people. In a recent video, we highlighted how large parts of South Africa was historically majority white until the first few decades of the 20th century. You can watch that video by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right here. And do support our work by becoming a paid member of the Willem Petzer Group by following the easy steps on this banner. Only with your help are we able to produce all the videos we are. Goodbye and God bless.